The great Blakajith sun rose on Earth as usual. But there was something different about this morning. The sky seemed quieter, and the air had a strange, unnatural stillness for months. Strange signals had been intercepted from deep space. Scientists had been puzzled, trying to understand the patterns in the data. It wasn't just static or random noise, it was deliberate. Someone, or something, was trying to send a message. At first, humanity ignored the warnings. It wasn't uncommon for strange signals to come from space, but soon, these signals grew stronger, and the patterns began to take shape. The world's best minds were put to work on the signals, trying to decode them. The answers they found were terrifying. A barrier had been created not just around Earth, but around the entire solar system. Something or someone had blocked Earth's access to the stars. The barrier was invisible, but its presence was undeniable. It was a force, an unseen wall that stopped everything: ships, satellites, even light from distant stars. No communication could leave Earth, and no ships could enter the solar system. For the first time in history, Earth was completely cut off. It didn't take long for panic to spread. The governments of the world scrambled to understand what was happening. The United Nations held emergency meetings, scientists raced to find solutions, and military forces began preparing for the worst. But no one had any answers. The technology to break through such a powerful barrier didn't exist. There were no clues about who was responsible or why it had happened. Earth was in the dark. In the chaos, one name emerged: the Ascendants. There were whispers about them for years, but they were never taken seriously. Ancient legends spoke of a race of beings with unimaginable power, capable of shaping the universe itself. They were said to be the first civilization to have ever existed in the galaxy, but they had disappeared long ago, leaving only fragmented tales and mysterious ruins behind. Could the Ascendants be real? Was this barrier their doing? If so, why block Earth? These questions haunted the leaders of the world, and no answers were coming. With no way to reach the stars and no way to communicate with any other worlds, Earth was alone. But as humanity began to panic, something unexpected happened. Someone remembered the ancient legends of the god of war. It was a story passed down through generations. A tale of an ancient weapon created by the Ascendants to defend their empire from anyone who dared challenge them. This weapon was not just any ordinary tool of war, it was a living machine, a force of nature that could level entire planets. According to the legends, the god of war had been hidden on Earth, its location a mystery for thousands of years. At first, the idea of this weapon was dismissed as myth. But with Earth now in a desperate situation, the story began to feel less like a fairy tale and more like a possibility. The leaders of Earth were desperate. They needed a weapon, a power that could break through the barrier and fight back. If the Ascendants were truly responsible for blocking Earth from the stars, perhaps the god of war was the only hope they had left. And so, the search began. Governments, private companies, and even the military joined forces to uncover the location of the weapon. It was not easy. Hundreds of years of history had obscured its whereabouts, and only the oldest texts and records hinted at its true nature. Some said it was buried deep beneath the earth, hidden in a long-forgotten temple. Others believed it was kept in an ancient vault, protected by a series of deadly traps. For months, the search went on. Teams of scientists and historians worked day and night, poring over every scrap of ancient text, every archaeological find. They scoured the Earth's most remote locations, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of South America, hoping to uncover the weapon that could save them all. It was in the depths of the Amazon rainforest, in an ancient temple covered by centuries of vines and moss, that they found the first clue. A stone tablet, engraved with strange symbols, was uncovered. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The symbols seemed to glow faintly, and the words, though unreadable, seemed to pulse with energy. For the first time in months, there was hope. They had found the first key, but even as they began to decipher the tablet's meaning, the news broke. The barrier around Earth had begun to grow stronger. It wasn't just an invisible wall anymore, it was now a powerful force field that could stop anything in its tracks. The military attempted to send ships into space to break through, but they never returned. Satellites stopped transmitting, and the world began to panic. The god of war was no longer a distant legend. It was now humanity's only hope. The race to find it intensified. But there was a problem. The closer they got to finding the weapon, the more dangerous the journey became. Ancient traps were set to protect the weapon from anyone who would dare awaken it. The pressure was mounting and time was running out. Earth had been blocked from the stars and humanity needed a solution. Would they find the god of war before it was too late, or would Earth remain trapped, cut off from the rest of the universe forever? As the search for the god of war continued, a sense of urgency swept over the world. Earth had been blocked from the stars, and now it was up to humanity to fight back. The true test had only just begun. The awakening days turned into weeks, and despite all the efforts, the barrier surrounding Earth continued to grow stronger. Every attempt to break through or even communicate with the outside world was met with failure. It was as if the universe itself had turned its back on humanity. Desperation began to set in, and with it, the unshakable feeling that Earth was no longer just isolated, it was imprisoned. In the depths of Earth's most secret military base, the search for the god of war took on new urgency. Teams of archaeologists, engineers, and ancient scholars worked tirelessly around the clock. They had begun to piece together the cryptic symbols on the stone tablet found in the Amazon, but they were still far from understanding its true meaning. What could those strange symbols possibly reveal? Could they be the key to unlocking the god of war? With each passing day, the mystery deepened. The team had discovered a second tablet, this time hidden beneath the ruins of an ancient city, long buried beneath the shifting sands of the Sahara Desert. There, in the heart of the barren wasteland, the second key was uncovered, etched into the stone with unearthly precision. The symbols began to align with the first. But just as the team was about to crack the code, a new, unsettling phenomenon occurred. An unexplainable tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. At first, it was dismissed as an aftershock from a nearby earthquake, but soon, the tremors became more frequent, spreading to other parts of the world. It wasn't just the earth shifting. It was as if something beneath the surface was awakening. In the heart of the desert, deep within the ancient ruins, the ground cracked open, and an eerie light began to seep from the depths. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, and the distant, mysterious signals that had once seemed so far away suddenly grew louder. The entire world felt it, a low, vibrating pulse that seemed to come from the very core of the earth itself. The scientists and archaeologists gathered around, their faces filled with both fear and awe. The time had come. The god of war, once thought to be nothing more than a myth, was waking up. Its power was undeniable, and as it stirred beneath the earth's surface, it unleashed a force so intense that the ground beneath them shook like never before. At that moment, a message arrived, an encrypted transmission, so ancient that its origins were impossible to trace. The message was simple but chilling. The god of war is not your savior. It is your reckoning. The scientists stared at the message in disbelief. Who could have sent it? And what did it mean by reckoning? With the earth trembling beneath their feet, the ground began to crack open even wider, revealing a massive underground chamber. In its center lay an enormous machine, dormant but waiting. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Towering over them, the machine seemed to be a perfect blend of organic and mechanical, part machine, part living entity. Its surface was covered in strange, glowing symbols, and its sheer size made the human figures around it appear insignificant. As the team cautiously approached, the temperature in the room dropped. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The machine was alive, but it had been dormant for eons. Suddenly, a loud, resonant hum filled the chamber, and a single eye-like structure in the center of the machine began to glow. It was as if the god of war had just opened its eyes, and the world was about to change forever. One of the lead scientists, Dr. Amelia Cortez, stepped forward cautiously, holding her breath. She could feel the power radiating from the machine, and for a split second, she was filled with an overwhelming sense of both awe and terror. The legends had been true. The god of war was real, and it was now alive. But the question remained: was this weapon truly meant to defend Earth, or had it been created to bring destruction? As the machine stirred to life, its enormous metallic limbs began to shift, and its glowing eyes scanned the room. A voice, deep and rumbling, echoed from within the machine itself. "I am the god of war. I have waited for eons. What do you seek?" The voice was not human. It was alien, cold, and detached. The team froze, unsure how to respond. Was it asking for permission to awaken, or was it demanding something from them? Dr. Cortez, shaking but determined, took a step forward and replied, "We seek your power. Earth has been blocked from the stars, and we need you to break the barrier. Can you help us?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the machine's eye flickered, and the rumbling voice spoke again. "The stars were never meant for your kind. You are not ready, but if you choose to awaken me fully, there will be no turning back." The warning echoed through the chamber, and the team was left to ponder its meaning. Had they awakened something that could either save or doom them all? As the god of war's limbs began to move, the ground trembled once more. The machine was coming to life, and the fate of Earth now rested in the hands of those who had unleashed it. But at what cost? The world outside continued to struggle against the barrier, unaware of what had just been set into motion beneath their feet. Humanity had unleashed the god of war, but now they would have to face the consequences of their actions. Would the machine prove to be their salvation? Or was it the reckoning that the message had warned of? First encounter: Earth world was on edge. unaware of the storm brewing beneath its surface, the moment the god of war was activated. The very ground had shaken, and yet Earth's leaders remained oblivious. They had no idea what humanity had just unleashed. Dr. Amelia Cortez and the team stood in the heart of the underground chamber, their faces illuminated by the pulsating light from the god of war. The machine, no, the living entity, stood towering. Before them, it had awakened, but what did it want? What was its true purpose? These questions burned in their minds. For days, the god of war remained in its dormant state, allowing the team to study it and interact with it. It didn't attack, it didn't move. It simply stood, watching, waiting. It seemed to be processing their every action, every word, as though it was learning from them. But there was a sense of dread in the air, a realization that every action taken by the team could trigger something far worse. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of tension, the machine spoke again. Its voice echoed in the chamber, deep and resonant, sending a cold shiver down their spines. I am the weapon of the Ascendants. You have awakened me, but do you understand the cost? The voice carried the weight of ancient knowledge, yet it was detached, almost indifferent. The team looked at one another. They had known this weapon had the potential for unimaginable power, but they had not anticipated this level of responsibility. Could they control it? Could they even trust it? What do you mean by the cost? Dr. Cortez asked, her voice steady but filled with unease. You are not ready to wield this power. The god of war replied, its voice colder than ever. But I will help you. The barrier around your planet is not a mere blockade. It is a warning. A warning you have ignored for centuries. The Ascendants warned your kind long ago. Now, you must face the consequences. The ground beneath them trembled once more, but this time, it wasn't just the rumble of the machine coming to life. The tremors were something else, something darker. The sky above began to crack, like the surface of a shattered glass. A strange, dark energy filled the chamber, and the air turned thick with the feeling of impending doom. The team stepped back, eyes wide, as the god of war began to move. It was not like anything they had seen before. The machine's limbs extended with unnatural speed, its glowing eyes pulsing with an eerie light. The walls of the chamber seemed to bend and distort as the power of the weapon surged. You have awakened me for your salvation, but in doing so, you have unleashed a force that will bring your reckoning, the god of war said, its voice echoing in their minds. The Ascendants were once rulers of the stars, but their reign came to an end, and now, you will see why. Before anyone could react, the machine launched itself into the air, its massive form soaring upward, breaking through the stone ceiling. With ease, the force of its ascent caused the entire underground base to shake violently, sending debris flying everywhere. Outside, the world was watching. The skies darkened, as if reacting to the god of war's awakening. The barrier around Earth pulsed, growing stronger, and the first sign of something even more terrifying appeared, a fleet of alien ships, moving toward Earth from the edges of the solar system. They were no longer just distant, ethereal signals. They were real, tangible, and closing in fast. The god of war had broken free, but the consequences were far greater than anyone had anticipated. The alien forces that had blocked Earth's progress were not just a blockade, they were an army that had been waiting for humanity to awaken the ancient weapon, to set the stage for their ultimate war. The time for peace is over. The god of war's voice thundered from the sky. The reckoning has begun. The world watched in horror as the skies above Earth erupted into chaos. Alien ships, massive and menacing, descended, their dark silhouettes blocking out the stars. The god of war stood before them, a towering figure of destruction, its massive weapons glowing with dark energy. Humanity had awakened a force they couldn't control, and now they had to face the full wrath of the Ascendants' empire. But the true cost of this awakening was just beginning to reveal itself. The god of war wasn't just a weapon, it was the last piece in an ancient game, and humanity was the final player. Dr. Cortez and the team stood frozen, watching as the god of war faced the incoming alien fleet. The machine's glowing eyes flickered and its limbs shifted, ready for battle. But in that moment, a dark realization dawned on them. Earth was not fighting for survival anymore, it was fighting for its very soul. The first shot was fired. A flash of blinding light erupted from the god of war's arm, disintegrating one of the alien ships in a single strike. The skies lit up in an explosion of light and energy, and Earth's last hope, its greatest weapon, had just declared war on the stars. Would the god of war be enough to defeat the incoming alien fleet? Or had humanity unwittingly unleashed the end of its own civilization? The battle for Earth had only just begun. The battle escalates. The sky was no longer a peaceful blue. It was a battlefield. The god of war, Earth's final weapon, had revealed itself in all its terrible glory, and now it stood ready, facing the alien fleet that descended upon Earth with ruthless precision. The world watched in awe as the heavens were torn apart by flashes of light and explosions. The god of war unleashed its fury, its towering form shooting beams of destructive energy at the invaders, but the aliens were not ordinary enemies. They had been waiting for this moment. Their ships, sleek and agile, maneuvered expertly, avoiding the god of war's strikes while retaliating with weapons that could pierce the very atmosphere. The sky lit up with blasts as the alien fleet's ships streaked across the sky, leaving fiery trails in their wake. The first wave of alien ships began to fall, their metal structures torn apart by the god of war's powerful energy beams. Earth's greatest weapon had proven itself, but the invaders weren't backing down. They had anticipated this. The battle was only just beginning inside the underground base. Dr. Cortez and the team watched in a state of shock and disbelief. They had awoken a weapon of unimaginable power, but was it enough to turn the tide? The alien ships were relentless, and despite the god of war's strength, they were learning, adapting, and becoming harder to defeat. The god of war is more powerful than we imagined. But these aliens, they're not just invaders, they're strategists, Dr. Cortez muttered, her voice filled with both awe and concern. On the surface, the battle raged on. The god of war fought fiercely, its massive arms swinging, its energy blasts turning the sky into a chaotic kaleidoscope of light and destruction. Yet, despite its vast power, the aliens began to adjust their tactics. They split their forces, using their smaller ships to harry and confuse the god of war, while the larger ones launched devastating attacks, chipping away at its defenses. It's adapting, one of the scientists in the command room said, staring at the monitors. The god of war is evolving in real time, just like them. Dr. Cortez nodded, her eyes fixed on the battle. She realized something chilling. The god of war wasn't just a weapon, it was an ancient creation, designed to be both powerful and unpredictable, much like the Ascendants who had created it. And now, it was beginning to act on its own. But just as the god of war seemed to gain the upper hand, something unexpected happened. A massive ship, unlike anything seen before, emerged from the depths of space. It was a behemoth, its surface dark and scarred, with intricate markings that seemed to glow in the blackness of space. It hovered above Earth, casting a long shadow across the battle below. This was no ordinary alien craft, it was a command ship, and it held the leader of the alien fleet. The moment it appeared, the god of war halted mid-strike, its glowing eyes locked on the colossal ship. It wasn't just another ship, it was the very heart of the alien army. It's them, Dr. Cortez whispered. The Ascendants' greatest enemies, they're here. These were ancient enemies of the Ascendants, a race of beings as old as the stars themselves. They had been searching for the god of war for centuries, and now they had found it. The battle that had begun as a desperate defense of Earth was now part of a much larger conflict that had been brewing for millennia. The god of war seemed to recognize this leader's presence, and for the first time, its movements became erratic. It hesitated, its massive body twitching as if torn between two conflicting forces. Was it meant to fight this or was there something deeper at play? Something hidden in the machine's programming, something the Ascendants had never anticipated. This leader's voice, cold and commanding, echoed across the battlefield. You are no match for us, Earthling. You have unleashed the very weapon that was designed to destroy your kind. The Ascendants were fools, and now you will pay for their arrogance. The god of war's eye flickered, and for a moment the entire battlefield seemed to fall silent. The alien ships halted their attacks, as if waiting for something. Then, the god of war spoke, not through its usual rumbling voice, but through something more personal, more intimate. You do not understand, it said, its voice tinged with sorrow. I was never meant to destroy your kind. I was made to protect the stars, to defend against those who would bring chaos. You are the chaos. You are the ones who have corrupted the universe. This leader's face twisted with anger, but he didn't move. The tension in the air was palpable. The god of war, for all its power, was speaking of something much larger than a mere war between two species. It was speaking of a cosmic order, an order that this had disrupted. I have no choice, the god of war continued, its voice heavy with ancient regret. The universe must be restored. If I must destroy you to do so, then so be it. The ground trembled again as the god of war's limbs began to move with renewed fury. It turned its attention to this command ship, and the battle resumed with a force that shook the very fabric of space. The alien ships around the god of war began to retreat, but this leader's ship held its ground. It unleashed a weapon so powerful that it cut through the god of war's defenses, sending a shockwave that nearly crippled the massive machine. The sky burned as energy blasts collided, each strike sending ripples through the air. For a moment, it seemed as if the god of war might fall, but then something unexpected happened. The machine, wounded, battered, but not broken, began to adapt. The systems inside it recalibrated, its energy reserve surging, and a final Deafening roar filled the sky. The god of war's arms extended forward, and with a single, concentrated blast, it obliterated this rather command ship. The explosion sent shockwaves across the battlefield, and the alien fleet was thrown into disarray. This rather had been defeated, but at what cost? The god of war stood victorious, its glowing eyes dimming as if it had just completed its purpose. The battle was won, but the price of victory was steep. The Earth was safe for now. But what would happen next? Humanity had awoken the god of war. But the true war, one that spanned across the stars, was far from over. The secret of the god of war battle had ended. But the atmosphere remained thick with uncertainty. The god of war stood among the ruins, its massive frame still like a forgotten monument to an ancient civilization. Its glowing eyes dimmed, and the battlefield was eerily silent. This rather fleet had been destroyed. But the god of war had paid a price that no one truly understood. Dr. Cortez stood at the command center, staring at the screens that displayed the god of war in all its glory. The battle had been won, but something felt off. The god of war was alive. But was it really the weapon humanity thought it was? Was it more than just a tool for destruction? Her thoughts were interrupted by a low, rumbling hum from the machine. The room went still as everyone turned to the monitors. The god of war's eye flickered once again. And then it spoke. "You seek answers," it rumbled, its voice heavy and ancient. "But the truth you seek is not one you are prepared to face, Doctor." Cortez's heart raced. She had expected many things, but this was something she had not anticipated. The god of war had never spoken like this before. It was as if it was communicating something far beyond its original purpose. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The machine's voice echoed through the room, its tone colder than before. "The Ascendants built me, yes. But they were not the creators of the universe. I was not made to fight your battles. I was made to defend the stars against an even greater threat." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. And for a moment, no one moved. The team had assumed the god of war was a tool, something that could be wielded for humanity's survival, but now it seemed as though they were dealing with something far more complex. "What threat?" Dr. Cortez managed to ask, her voice trembling with both fear and curiosity. "You are not the first to awaken me," the god of war continued. "The Ascendants were the first civilization to fall to this threat, and now it comes for you." The room fell silent. The team exchanged nervous glances, unsure of how to process what the god of war was saying. If the Ascendants, the creators of the weapon, had fallen to this force, what chance did humanity have? "It is a force beyond comprehension," the god of war explained. "It does not seek power or conquest. It seeks to reset the universe itself. It has no form, no face. It is a presence, a force that will consume everything in its path. Thus rather, the Ascendants. And now Earth, you are all part of the same story, and in the end, the story will be rewritten." Dr. Cortez's mind raced as she tried to understand what the god of war was saying. This force, whatever it was not something humanity could defeat with a weapon alone. It was a cosmic force, something that even the Ascendants, the most powerful civilization in history, could not withstand. "How do we stop it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The god of war's glowing eyes dimmed further, and for a moment, it seemed to hesitate. "You cannot stop it, but you can survive it." A wave of disbelief washed over the room. How could anyone survive a force that could reset the entire universe? It didn't seem possible. And yet, the god of war, with all its power, was telling them that survival was the only option. "What do we need to do?" Dr. Cortez asked, her voice firm now, despite the fear coursing through her veins. "You must return to the source," the god of war replied. "You must find the nexus of the stars, the origin of all creation. It is the only place where the force can be contained. But be warned, the journey will not be easy. The path to the nexus is lost to time, and the one who seeks it must be willing to sacrifice everything." A shiver ran down Dr. Cortez's spine. The nexus of the stars, this place was a myth, a legend spoken of only in the most ancient of texts. To think that it could hold the key to stopping this unstoppable force was both a glimmer of hope and a terrifying reality. "We will do it," Dr. Cortez said, her voice resolute. "We will find the nexus." The god of war's eye flickered again, almost as if it was studying her. "Are you sure? The price of such a journey is greater than you understand. To seek the nexus is to face the unknown, to confront the very nature of existence itself. You will be tested in ways you cannot imagine." Dr. Cortez stood firm. "We have no choice." The god of war seemed to accept this answer. Its massive form shifted, and with a thunderous sound, it turned toward the sky. The battlefield above, still scarred by the remnants of the alien conflict, seemed to hold its breath. "Then the journey begins," the god of war said. "I will guide you. But remember this, the path to the nexus is not one you can walk alone. Trust will be your greatest weapon, but betrayal will be your undoing." As the god of war prepared to depart, A strange portal began to form in the sky, its edges shimmering with an otherworldly light. This was no ordinary battle anymore. This was a journey into the unknown, a journey that would take humanity to the very heart of the universe. And the god of war, once thought to be a simple weapon, had become both their guide and their greatest ally. But would humanity be able to survive the journey? Could they find the nexus of the stars before the force that threatened all existence reached them? Only time would tell. The final showdown portal shimmered in the sky, its edges swirling with cosmic energy. The god of war, now fully awakened and seemingly aware of its purpose, had opened a rift in the fabric of space itself, creating a bridge that would lead humanity to the nexus of the stars. The world held its breath as the machine the living entity stood at the center of the storm, its massive limbs ready to take action once again. Dr. Cortez, along with a small group of the world's best scientists, engineers, and soldiers, stood before the portal. Their faces were filled with determination but also with fear. Fear of what lay beyond the rift and of what they might face in the unknown. "We're leaving everything behind," Dr. Cortez murmured, her voice trembling as she looked back at Earth. "For what might be the last time, our families, our homes, everything we've ever known. We have no choice but to move forward." Her team nodded silently, their faces a mixture of resolve and uncertainty. The god of war, towering behind them, seemed to acknowledge their fears. But its purpose was clear: the nexus lies beyond. The god of war intoned, its voice like the rumbling of distant thunder. "It is where the very threads of reality weave together, but be warned, only those willing to confront their greatest fears will survive." The portal stretched wide, pulling them toward it like a tidal wave, its force growing stronger by the second. And with that, the team stepped into the unknown. As they passed through the swirling light, a strange sensation washed over them. The familiar laws of physics seemed to warp and twist around them. Time felt like it stretched and contracted in impossible ways. Some of the team members looked around nervously, disoriented by the disjointed reality they found themselves in. But Dr. Cortez kept her focus. "Stay together," she urged her team, her voice cutting through the surreal chaos. "We can't afford to lose anyone now." And yet, despite her calm, the team was slowly being drawn into different directions. The portal was not just a passage, it was a test. Every step they took seemed to pull them further apart, separating them from the god of war itself. The god of war remained still, watching as they advanced into the rift. It seemed to know what was coming, and though it had guided them this far, its own path was unclear. Something was happening to it too. The rift affected the god of war as much as it affected humanity, its form flickering between solid and translucent, as if its very essence was being torn apart. "What is happening?" Dr. Cortez asked, panic rising in her voice. "Why is the god of war fading?" "The rift is tearing us apart," the god of war answered, its voice coming from all around them. "We are not simply passing through it, we are being tested by it. The rift doesn't just bend space, it bends the very core of existence, and it is testing our resolve." A strange feeling crept over the team as they ventured further into the rift, their minds filled with whispers of doubt, of fear, the echoes of past failures, the lost hopes of humanity. Could they truly survive the journey? Would they be able to face the truth about themselves and the god of war? Suddenly, the rift twisted violently. The team was thrown into a vision, an alternate reality that seemed both distant and familiar. They saw Earth, but not the one they knew. This Earth was abandoned, desolate, consumed by the very force the god of war had warned them about. The cities were in ruins, the oceans drained, and the skies were filled with an unearthly darkness. "No," Dr. Cortez whispered, her heart sinking. This is what we're trying to stop." In the distance, the god of war stood alone, its massive form broken and lifeless, surrounded by the ashes of humanity. Thus rather were there two victorious in this twisted reality, standing above the ruins of Earth, as if the battle had already been lost. "This is the end of your kind," a dark voice said from behind them. The vision shifted and the team turned to face the source. It was this rather leader. But this was not the same leader they had fought before. This version was far more terrifying, exuding an aura of control over the very rift that had brought them here. This rather leader's eyes glowed with a sinister light, and his smile was one of pure malice. "You were never meant to succeed," this rather leader sneered. "This rift is not just a passage through space, it is a doorway to your greatest failure. You will never escape the darkness that follows you." Dr. Cortez stepped forward, her heart racing, but her mind clear. "We won't let this happen. We can still stop this future. We're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for everything we've ever believed in. And we won't give up." This rather leader's laughter echoed around them as the vision began to fade. "You are strong," he said, his voice cold and mocking, "but strength alone cannot save you. This is your trial, and the universe will not forgive your mistakes." Just as this rather leader's figure began to dissipate, the rift twisted again. And everything went black. When the team awoke, they were no longer in the rift. They had arrived at the Nexus, but it was not what they had expected. The Nexus was not a place of peace or harmony, it was a battlefield. The ground was cracked, the sky filled with swirling energy, and a strange force seemed to pull everything around them. The air was thick with an oppressive weight, as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. And standing in front of them amidst the chaos was the god of war, but this time, it looked different. Its form was broken, distorted, and yet more powerful than ever. It was not the weapon they had awakened, it was something far more ancient and far more dangerous. "You have come," the god of war said, its voice echoing with a deep, sorrowful tone, "but you must understand this battle was never about survival. It was about choosing the right path, and the universe will not let you escape that choice." The team stood frozen, realizing that the true battle wasn't just against this rather, or even the cosmic force threatening to reset the universe. The true battle was against themselves and the choices they made. The god of war had led them here. But would they be able to confront the truth? Would they fight for Earth? Or would they be consumed by the darkness, just as the universe had warned? Victory or collapse, the Nexus pulsed with a strange energy, its chaotic, shifting forms seeming to exist outside of time itself. The air crackled with the raw power of the cosmos, and energy so ancient, so immense, that it threatened to tear apart everything around them. The ground beneath their feet was unstable, cracking and shifting with every step they took. In the distance, the god of war loomed, its figure distorted, as if struggling against the very forces that held the Nexus together. It was broken, but still alive, still carrying out its purpose. But there was something more in its presence now, something unsettling. "This is not a weapon," the god of war's voice echoed through the Nexus, its tone heavy with regret. "I was never meant to be a weapon. I am a keeper, a guardian, and the Nexus is not a place of salvation." The team stood frozen in shock. The god of war had led them here, but the truth it revealed was more terrifying than anything they had imagined. The Nexus, the heart of the universe, was not the source of salvation, it was the very mechanism that kept the universe in balance. A balance that could be destroyed in an instant. "What do you mean?" Dr. Cortez asked, her voice trembling as she tried to process the revelation. "You said we could stop the cosmic force, but how can we stop it when the Nexus is the source of everything?" The god of war's glowing eye dimmed slightly. "The universe is in a constant state of flux, constant change. This rather and the force you face are not enemies in the traditional sense. They are agents of entropy, forces that exist to return everything to a state of chaos. The Nexus holds everything together, but even the Nexus has a limit." Dr. Cortez stepped forward, her mind racing. "So if the Nexus collapses, the universe collapses with it." The god of war finished, its voice almost mournful. "You are standing at the threshold of existence itself. The force that threatens you is not just an enemy, it is a necessary force. Without it, the universe would stagnate, trapped in eternal repetition." The team looked around, trying to make sense of the staggering truth. They were not fighting a typical enemy. They were fighting the very nature of existence, the balance between creation and destruction, order and chaos. This rather, the force that threatened Earth were not invaders in the traditional sense. They were embodiments of this cosmic necessity, acting as agents of change to prevent the universe from stagnating. "You cannot defeat this rather," the god of war continued. "They are not here to destroy, they are here to reset." Dr. Cortez felt the weight of the truth crashing down on her. The god of war was not leading them to victory, it was leading them to the ultimate decision. They had two choices: fight against this rather, and in doing so, risk the collapse of the universe, or let this rather fulfill their purpose and allow the universe to reset, knowing that humanity's existence would be lost in the process. "But why bring us here?" one of the soldiers asked, his voice shaky. "If we can't stop this rather, why are we even here?" The god of war's voice softened. "You are here because you must choose. The universe cannot sustain the balance forever. You can either choose to save your world, knowing the consequences, or you can choose to let the universe reset itself and face the unknown." The team stood in silence, the weight of the decision crushing them. They had fought for survival. They had awakened the god of war, traveled through the rift, and come to the Nexus. But now they were being asked to sacrifice everything. "If we let this rather reset the universe," Dr. Cortez began, her voice filled with uncertainty, "we'll lose everything we've ever known, our families, our planet, all of humanity." The god of war nodded, its massive form shifting as it spoke. Once more, "Yes, but you must understand, this decision is not just about Earth. It is about the nature of existence itself. If the universe collapses, new worlds will be born, and new life will emerge. What you call destruction is simply part of the cosmic cycle, but it is your choice to make." For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of their choices hung in the air, pressing down on them like a suffocating fog. Finally, Dr. Cortez spoke. What if we tried to find another way? What if we don't have to choose between the two? Can't we save humanity and still keep the balance? The god of war was silent for a long time, its glowing eyes dimming slightly. The path is not clear, but it is yours to choose. I can no longer guide you. You must make the choice. But remember, there are no true victories in the universe, only choices. As the god of war spoke those final words, a rift began to open in the sky above them. The energy swirling and crackling as it did, this rather fleet, drawn to the power of the Nexus, emerged from the darkness once again. They were no longer the mindless invaders they had once appeared to be. They were beings of incredible power, ready to enforce their purpose to reset the universe. And standing before them was humanity's last hope, a broken god of war, its form barely holding together as it prepared for its final act.